Section A. Trigger to service. App on EC2 hard codes AWS access keys and needs access to S3. Answer. Attach an IAM role through an instance profile so the app gets temporary credentials from IMDS. Cross-account access needed, but long-term access keys are prohibited. Answer. IAM role with a trust policy and the other account calls STS assume role. An explicit deny conflicts with a broad allow in IAM policies. Answer. Explicit deny always wins. It overrides any allow. MFA must be required for all AWS CLI operations. Answer. Add the AWS multi-factor auth present condition in the policy and use STS get session token. Delegate role creation, but cap the maximum permissions that can be granted. Answer. Permissions boundary, effective permissions, are the intersection of the boundary and the policy. AWS access keys stored in a config file on the instance. Answer. IAM role attached through an instance profile instead of any stored keys. Want a discount, but may move workloads to Lambda or change instance family. Answer. Compute savings plan. It keeps flexibility across instance family and Lambda. Spot fleet must minimize interruptions while keeping the price low. Answer. Use the price capacity optimized allocation strategy. Eliminate long reinitialization on stop and start. Keep memory contents. Answer. EC2 hibernate. RAM is saved and the instance resumes from the pause state. Need guaranteed capacity in a specific availability zone plus a 1-year discount. Answer. Zonal reserved instance. It gives both the capacity reservation and the billing discount. Run a script on many already running instances without stopping them. Answer. SSM run command. Need high IOPS and throughput cheaply without inflating volume size. Answer. EBS GP3, IOPS and throughput are provisioned independently up to 16,000 IOPS. Old snapshots rarely accessed. RTO of tens of hours is acceptable. Answer. EBS snapshot archive. It cuts snapshot cost by up to 75%. Encrypt an existing unencrypted EBS volume without destroying the data. Answer. Take a snapshot, make an encrypted copy with KMS, then create a new volume from it. Automatically build patched AMIs on a schedule and use them in several regions. Answer. EC2 image builder pipeline, then copy the AMI to the other region. Clients need static IP addresses for the firewall allow list plus HTTP routing. Answer. NLB with static IP addresses, with an ALB registered as the NLB target. All traffic must pass through third-party appliances for deep packet inspection. Answer. Gateway load balancer. It uses the Geneve protocol on port 6081. Route by host and path, and log the real client IP behind the ALB. Answer. ALB host and path routing rules, and read the client IP from the exported for header. Heavy reporting queries hurt the primary. Real-time data not required. Least effort. Answer. RDS read replica. Point the analytics workload at it. Many Lambda functions exhaust the RDS maximum connection limit. Answer. RDS proxy. It pools and reuses database connections. Leaderboard needing sorted scores, persistence, and failover without manual recovery. Answer. Elasticache for Redis with multi-availability zone and sorted sets. Isolate analytics reads from the primary and keep connection disruption minimal. Answer. Add a read replica and put RDS proxy in front for a smooth failover. Unpredictable intermittent database load, no capacity planning, minimize cost. Answer. Aurora Serverless v2. Capacity scales automatically with the load. Encrypt an existing unencrypted RDS database with minimal downtime. Answer. Snapshot the database. Copy the snapshot with KMS encryption, then restore from that copy. Apex domain must point to an AWS resource, such as an ELB. Answer. Route 53 alias A record. A name is not allowed at the apex. On-premises servers must resolve names in a Route 53 private hosted zone. Answer. Route 53 inbound resolver endpoint. Gradually shift traffic between regions without hard country boundaries. Answer. Route 53 geoproximity routing with traffic flow. Increase the bias toward one region. Cut Route 53 query charges and avoid stale IPs for AWS resources. Answer. Replace the name records with alias records. Alias queries are free and track the resource. Production deployment with zero downtime and instant rollback without redeploying. Answer. Elastic Beanstalk immutable deployment. Archive compliance logs for years, rarely accessed, retrieval in hours is fine. Answer. S3 Glacier Deep Archive, the lowest cost class for long-term archives. Bucket policy grants public read, but requests still return 403 forbidden. Answer. Block public access is enabled on the bucket. It overrides the policy. Objects that existed before cross-region replication was enabled are not replicated. Answer. S3 Batch replication. It replicates the pre-existing objects. Objects must be immutable for years, even for the root account. Answer. S3 Object Lock in compliance mode. Nobody including root can delete or overwrite. Which transitions can S3 Storage Class Analysis recommend? Answer. Only the transition from S3 Standard to S3 Standard IA. Give temporary access to a private object to users without an AWS account. Answer. S3 pre-signed URL. It expires and the bucket stays private. Serve different transform views of one object without storing extra copies. Answer. S3 Object Lambda with access points. It transforms the object on the fly. ACM certificate for a custom domain on a CloudFront distribution. Answer. The certificate must be requested or imported in the US, East, 1 region. UDP real-time traffic, exactly 2 static IPs to whitelist, low latency worldwide. Answer: AWS Global Accelerator Standard. It gives two static anycast IP addresses. Snowball Edge data must end up archived in S3 Glacier. Answer: Snowball imports into S3 standard first, then a lifecycle policy moves objects to Glacier. Regional failover under 60 seconds without DNS TTL plus percentage traffic shifting. Answer: AWS Global Accelerator health checks on the anycast IPs and traffic dials to shift a percentage. SMB shares with NTFS ACL permissions, Active Directory, and multi-availability zone availability. Answer: FSX for Windows file server in multi-availability zone. HPC needing sub-millisecond latency on temporary scratch data at low cost. Answer: FSX for Lustre in scratch mode, no replication and cheapest between runs. Partners keep their FTP clients, need encryption in transit, files land in EFS. Answer: AWS Transfer Family with FTPS or SFTP, writing into EFS. One S3 event must be delivered to several downstream services. Answer: SNS plus SQS fanout. Many independent consumers, replay of past events, ordering per key. Answer: Kinesis data streams, using a partition key for per-key ordering. Legacy on-premises messaging using open protocols YAMQP or MQTT, no code rewrite. Answer: Amazon MQ. Several consumers hit the shared 2 megabytes per second shard limit. Answer: Kinesis enhanced fanout, giving each consumer its own dedicated throughput. Selective delivery to subscribers by message attributes with minimal changes. Answer: SNS subscription filter policy. ECSEC2 launch type, task stuck in provisioning due to missing capacity. Answer: ECS cluster capacity provider with managed scaling. Developer with no DevOps skills deploys an API from a repository, no servers. Answer: AWS App Runner. EKS with a high IOPS block storage database and stateless pods. Answer: Manage node groups with the EBS CSI driver for the database. Fargate profile for stateless pods. Cold starts after idle periods. Strict P99 latency SLA. Answer: Lambda provision concurrency, not reserve concurrency, and not more memory. Choosing API gateway authorization for different caller types. Answer: IAM for AWS services, Cognito user pools for ODC users, Lambda authorizer for custom or opaque tokens. Lambda must reach RDS proxy or another VPC resource. Answer: Put the Lambda in the same VPC and grant IAM permissions to create, describe, and delete ENIs. Ad hoc SQL over data in S3, infrequent, minimal overhead. Answer: Amazon Athena. No hard-coded secrets, a customer-controlled key, and encryption in transit. Answer: Secrets Manager with a KMS customer-managed key, plus RDS.force_SSL. Multi-hop traversal of relationships with millisecond latency. Answer: Amazon Neptune. Sub-second cross-region replication. Local reads. Failover under 1 minute. Answer: Aurora Global Database. Athena needs per query skin limits and a separate output bucket per team. Answer: Athena workgroups. EMR must be cheaper without losing HDFS data. Answer: Keep master and core nodes on demand, run task nodes on spot. Row-level and column-level security for a data lake, managed from one place. Answer: AWS Lake Formation, enforced across Athena and Redshift spectrum. Recognize celebrities or objects in a real-time video stream. Answer: Amazon Recognition Video with Kinesis video streams. Remove PII from call transcripts with no code. Answer: Amazon Transcribe PII redaction. Precise natural language answers from scanned documents. Answer: Textract for OCR of the scans, then Amazon Kyndra for the answers. Auto-scaling group reacts too slowly to CPU because metrics arrive every 5 minutes. Answer: Enable EC2 detail monitoring for 1-minute metrics. Near real-time delivery of CloudWatch logs into S3. Answer: Subscription filter with Kinesis data firehose, not create export task. Alert only when several metrics breach together and recover on host hardware failure. Answer: Composite alarm with and plus an EC2 recover action on status check failed _system. Automatically detect bursts of unusual API write activity with minimal effort. Answer: CloudTrail Insights. Detect and remediate bad configuration and also hard block resource creation. Answer: AWS config with SSM automation to remediate in an organization's SCP as the hard guardrail. One sign-on across many accounts plus Okta and business applications. Answer: IAM Identity Center with SAML and SCAM using permission sets. Control tower must block an action or detect and report resources. Answer: Preventive guardrail with SCP to block. Detective guardrail with AWS config to detect. No user data copied into AWS. MFA. Authentication against existing on-premises AD. Answer: AD connector. SSE-KMS with S3 cross-region replication and multi-region keys. Answer: S3 still decrypts and re-encrypts. Replication does not transfer ciphertext under a single key. Single-tenant hardware, FIPS 140 to 2 level 3, SSL or TLS offload. Answer: AWS Cloud HSM. Automatic rotation of RDS credentials with no application code changes. Answer: AWS Secrets Manager. Automatically block IPs by request rate at layer 7. Answer: AWS WAF rate-based rule. Agentless threat detection for IAM anomalies and crypto mining DNS lookups. Answer: Amazon Guard Duty. Find PHI in S3 and detect EC2 command and control connections. Answer: Macy for the PHI discovery, Guard Duty for the command and control traffic. Large S3 traffic through an AT gateway must be cheaper and private. Answer: Gateway VPC endpoint for S3, which is free. Direct connect traffic must be encrypted. Answer: Run a site-to-site VPN with IPsec over the direct connect connection. Many VPCs across accounts needing transitive routing and on-premises access. Answer: Transit gateway shared with AWS RAM. IPv6 instances need outbound internet only, no inbound. Answer: Egress-only internet gateway with a default IPv6 route. Provider behind an NLB serving many VPCs with overlapping CDR ranges. Answer: Private link endpoint service. Increase VPN throughput without direct connect. Answer: Transit gateway with multiple VPN tunnels and ECMP. Migrate between different database engines with no downtime. Answer: AWS SCT for the schema, then AWS DMS with CDC. Backups must be undeletable even by the root user. Answer: AWS Backup Vault Lock in compliance mode. Permanent rehost migration of servers with no code changes. Answer: AWS MGN. Huge data volume, weak network link, plus ongoing database changes to catch up. Answer: Snowball Edge for the bulk data, then DMS with CDC for the changes. S3 fan out to several targets with filtering on metadata or object size. Answer: S3 with Event Bridge. EC2 access without port 22 or SSH keys with session auditing. Answer: SSM Session Manager. Automatically detect abnormal spend without manual thresholds. Answer: Cost anomaly detection. Tightly coupled MPI workload needing extremely low internode latency. Answer: EFA with a cluster placement group. For millions of IOPS backed by S3, use FSX for Luster. Separate read requests from write requests in Aurora. Answer: Add an Aurora replica and send reads to the reader endpoint. Lambda function in account A must access an S3 bucket in account B. Answer: Execution role in account A plus a bucket policy in account B allowing that role ARN. Recreatable data, lowest cost, still needs immediate access. Answer: S3 1 zone infrequent access, transitioned after 30 days. One-time copy of existing objects to a bucket in another region, no snowball. Answer: S3 batch replication or the AWS S3 sync command. Launch configuration has the wrong instance type, need a long-term fix. Answer: Create a new launch configuration, point the auto-scaling group to it, delete the old one. Launch configurations are immutable. EBS volume disappeared when the EC2 instance was terminated. Answer: it was the root volume, where delete on termination is true by default. Key value data processed and stored reliably with high availability and no servers. Answer: Lambda to process the data and DynamoDB to store it. Delivery lag when multiple consumer applications read one Kinesis data stream. Answer: Kinesis enhanced fanout. Need buffering or throttling to absorb sudden traffic spikes. Answer: API gateway with SQS and Kinesis for buffering and throttling. Blue-green deployment where clients are prone to DNS caching. Answer: AWS Global Accelerator, which shifts traffic without depending on DNS TTL rather than Route 53 weighted records. Multiple branch offices on site-to-site VPN must send and receive data with each other. Answer: AWS VPN Cloud Hub. Heterogeneous migration with complex schema, secondary indexes, foreign keys, stored procedures. Answer: AWS Schema Conversion Tool, then AWS DMS. Complex relationship queries on a social graph, such as friends of friends. Answer: Amazon Neptune. EDA or HPC parallel distributed processing with cheap cold data in S3. Answer: FSX for Lustre. Continuously replicate RDS data into a petabyte-scale Redshift warehouse without writing code. Answer: AWS DMS with change data capture. Replicate on-premises NFS files to EFS over direct connect with fewest components. Answer: AWS Data Sync over private link or private VIF. Key considerations when building a serverless backbone on AWS Lambda. Answer: layers for shared code, CloudWatch alarms for scaling, and an NAT gateway for internet access when attached to a VPC. Technical protection against accidental deletion of S3 objects for compliance. Answer: S3 versioning plus MFA delete. Alert 30 days before an imported ACM certificate expires, with least scripting effort. Answer: AWS config managed rule ACM certificate expiration check with SNS notification. End-to-end security for data in transit to RDS. Answer: enable SSL on the RDS database. KMS only covers data at rest. Build custom applications that process and analyze streaming data in real time. Answer: Kinesis data streams. True statements about EC2 user data configuration. Answer: it runs with root privileges and executes only at the first launch of the instance. Object overwritten in S3 and read back immediately, worried about stale data. Answer: S3 always returns the latest version. It has strong read-after-write consistency. Lowest data transfer egress cost for heavy internal traffic and light outbound traffic. Answer: keep the heavy traffic inside the region and send only the light traffic out over Direct Connect. Shield advance costs far higher than expected across multiple AWS accounts. Answer: enable consolidated billing, so the Shield advance fee is charged once per organization. Stream existing S3 files and ongoing updates into Kinesis data streams fastest, no code. Answer: AWS DMS with S3 as the source and Kinesis data streams as the target. Global relational database with fast local reads, keeping the same relational schema. Answer: Aurora Global Database. Proprietary UDP protocol needing low latency for a global audience. Answer: AWS Global Accelerator. Cross-reference historical data in S3 with daily Redshift reports, least effort. Answer: Redshift Spectrum, without moving the historical data. Email notification when a metric breaches a threshold, least development effort. Answer: CloudWatch alarm with an SNS notification. Slow uploads of large files to S3 from distant geographies. Answer: multi-part upload combined with S3 transfer acceleration. Correct capabilities of an encrypted EBS volume for HIPAA compliance. Answer: data is encrypted at rest, in transit between the volume and the instance, and all snapshots are encrypted. Real-time analytics on ingested IoT data, plus push notifications back to mobile apps. Answer: Kinesis for the streaming analytics and SNS for the push notifications. NLB targets registered by instance ID. How is traffic routed? Answer: traffic goes to the primary private IP address of the primary network interface. Heavy red traffic reduce latency and downsize the RDS instance to cut costs. Answer: put Elasticache in front of RDS. Automatically reboot an EC2 instance that freezes, most cost-optimal and resource-efficient. Answer: CloudWatch alarm with the built-in EC2 reboot action. Find idle or underutilized EC2 instances and pick better instance types. Answer: Cost Explorer resource optimization plus AWS Compute Optimizer for right sizing. Cache hot DynamoDB reads and speed up static content from S3. Answer: DAC for DynamoDB and CloudFront for the static content. Data sources supported by Amazon GuardDuty. Answer: VPC flow logs, DNS logs, and CloudTrail events. In-memory cache of SQL query results, highly available and HIPAA compliant. Answer: Elasticache for Redis. EC2 instances need access to several AWS services, most secure option. Answer: an IAM role attached to the instances through an instance profile. Hub and spoke VPC peering fails to connect all VPCs. Needs scale. Answer: transit gateway, because VPC peering is not transitive. Find out who keeps changing resource settings without restricting user rights. Answer: AWS CloudTrail, which audits API calls. Installation takes over 45 minutes with both static and dynamic files. Need fast launch. Answer: Golden AMI for the static parts plus user data for the dynamic parts. AWS managed IPsec VPN between a remote on-premises network and a VPC. Answer: Site-to-site VPN with a virtual private gateway on the AWS side and a customer gateway on premises. Control both user-level and account-level cross-account S3 access from one place. Answer: S3 bucket policy. Static content drives 90% of the network usage on ECS behind an ALB. Answer: Serve the static content from Amazon S3. Shared, centrally managed VPCs across departments with high interconnectivity. Answer: VPC sharing subnets with AWS RAM. Delegate access for users in a dev account to resources in another production account. Answer: IAM role in the production account, and users from dev call STS assume role to access it. Queue between applications, messages retained. One failing message must not block the rest. Answer: SQS with a dead letter queue, so fail messages are isolated from remaining processing. Need a fast copy of the production database for staging without loading production. Answer: Aurora database cloning for the staging copy, plus Aurora replicas for the heavy read activity. Unpredictable spikes in concurrent users, single EC2 instance, must scale with the user base. Answer: Lambda for variable concurrency, with S3 for storage and DynamoDB for data. Private connectivity to S3 from a VPC with no internet connectivity. Answer: Gateway VPC endpoint for S3, which keeps traffic private without internet access. Single sign-on across all organizations' accounts, but users stay in on-premises Active Directory. Answer: AWS IAM Identity Center with AWS managed Microsoft AD and a one-way trust to the on-premises directory. Database inserts take 10 seconds or longer, and storage performance is the bottleneck. Answer: EBS provisioned IOPS SSD, which fixes slow writes caused by storage performance. Organization-wide preventive limits on allowed regions and blocking internet connectivity. Answer: AWS Control Tower guardrails plus service control policies applied preventively across the organization. Static documents uploaded over SFTP must serve as a CloudFront origin. Answer: S3 as the origin, with AWS Transfer Family for SFTP to preserve the existing upload method. Capture a specific AWS API call, such as EC2 create image, and alert on it. Answer: AWS CloudTrail to record API calls, with EventBridge and SNS for the alert. SMB clients need shared file access, and the solution must be fully managed. Answer: Amazon FSx for Windows File Server, a fully managed shared SMB file system. Upload 500 GB files fast from global sites into one S3 bucket. Answer: S3 transfer acceleration with multi-part upload for fast long-distance transfers. Allow bucket access only to accounts within the organization, with least operational overhead. Answer: the AWS Principal Org ID condition key in the S3 bucket policy. Compare and analyze the last 2 months of EC2 costs with least operational overhead. Answer: AWS Cost Explorer, which graphs and analyzes costs by filters. Lambda handling high data volume overloads the database and needs better scalability. Answer: put an SQSQ between 2 Lambda functions to buffer the load on the database. Ensure S3 buckets do not have unauthorized configuration changes. Answer: AWS config with rules to track resource configuration changes and drift. Show the CloudWatch dashboard to a person with no AWS account, using least privilege. Answer: CloudWatch dashboard sharing, which grants view access without an AWS account. Host HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and images as cheaply as possible. Answer: S3 static website hosting, the most cost-effective option for a static site. Detect and protect against large-scale DDoS attacks on an elastic load balancer. Answer: AWS Shield Advanced, assigned to the elastic load balancer. Instances behind a single NAT gateway use S3. Avoid regional data transfer charges. Answer: Gateway VPC endpoint for S3, which removes the NAT and regional data transfer costs. Protect S3 data from accidental deletion. Choose 2. Answer: S3 versioning plus MFA delete on the bucket. Delivery to Lambda fails occasionally and data is missed until manual rerun. Answer: SNS fan out into an SQSQ, with Lambda reading from SQS, and no messages are lost. Detect personally identifiable information in S3 and alert admins, with minimal development. Answer: Amazon Macie for PII discovery, with SNS notifications to administrators. Urgently run an ad hoc patch on 1000 EC2 Linux instances as fast as possible. Answer: AWS Systems Manager Run command. Standard file system structure that scales automatically is highly available, minimum overhead. Answer: Amazon EFS, which auto-scales and is highly available with a standard file system structure. Windows SMB servers need low-latency file access on premises and in AWS. Answer: Amazon FSX for Windows File Server, with an FSX file gateway for low-latency on-premises access. HPC workload with sub-millisecond latency, hundreds of gigabits per second throughput, and millions of IOPS. Answer: Amazon FSX for Lustre. IAM groups created per department, most secure way to grant permissions. Answer: Attach a least privilege IAM policy to the group, because IAM roles cannot be attached to groups. Global users need the best possible experience from an app behind an existing ALB. Answer: Amazon CloudFront, a CDN that serves users from edge locations. Source database stays online during migration and must remain synchronized with on-premises. Answer: AWS DMS replication server with an ongoing replication task using change data capture. Inconsistent object access patterns parallel multi-part uploads. Optimize S3 storage cost. Answer: S3 intelligent tiering, plus a lifecycle rule to abort incomplete multi-part uploads. Migrate on-premises MySQL, keep application compatibility, and scale automatically on demand. Answer: migrate with DMS to Aurora MySQL and use Aurora autoscaling. 403 access denied, terminating an EC2 instance while using an IAM role. Answer: the IAM policy action does not allow the required EC2 permission, and IAM is denied by default. Decrease read latency from a DynamoDB table with least operational overhead. Answer: DynamoDB Accelerator, also called DAX, an in-memory cache for DynamoDB. Lambda opens too many connections to a private RDS PostgreSQL instance. Need predictable performance. Answer: RDS proxy endpoint for connection pooling, with a Lambda function running inside the VPC. Improve database read performance with minimal changes to the application architecture. Answer: Amazon Elasticache in front of the database to offload reads. Instances launched from an AMI must have minimum initialization latency during sudden demand. Answer: EBS Fast Snapshot Restore on the snapshot behind the AMI. Allow communication between web server EC2 instances and the RDS DB instance. Answer: reference the web server security group inside the database security group, not an IP or an auto-scaling group. Authenticate application end users and call AWS on behalf of logged-on users. Answer: Amazon Cognito Identity Pool with a default IAM role for authenticated users. Convert hundreds of CSV files to Apache Parquet with least development effort. Answer: AWS Glue Crawler Plus and AWS Glue ETL job. Fraudulent botnet requests and unauthorized users hitting an API gateway and Lambda API. Answer: AWS WAF with a rate-based rule, plus an API gateway usage plan with API keys. Centralize CloudTrail logs and give an auditor access while restricting developer account users. Answer: deliver CloudTrail logs to a central S3 bucket and give the auditor a read-only IAM role. Only the web tier is public, and SSL termination must be offloaded from EC2. Answer: YLB in the public subnets doing SSL termination, with the auto-scaling group in private subnets. Outbound internet from private subnets. No public access, no infrastructure to manage. Answer: NAT gateway in a public subnet, a managed, highly available, and scalable option. Least privilege for a deployment engineer who only runs AWS CloudFormation templates. Answer: IAM user with only CloudFormation actions, plus a narrow IAM role that the stack uses. Data to RDS MySQL must be encrypted in transit, currently not enabled. Answer: download the AWS root certificates and use SSL or TLS in the database connections. Lambda in a private subnet must reach private RDS and a third-party API. Answer: Attach the AWS Lambda VPC access execution role and add an NAT gateway for the outbound API call. SSE-C block storage where only recently accessed data stays stored locally. Answer: Storage gateway volume gateway in cached volumes mode. Predictable traffic spike at a known time each year. Add capacity proactively. Answer: Auto-scaling scheduled scaling action, which adds capacity proactively ahead of the peak. Raw video buffers on mobile playback. Minimize operational overhead. Answer: Elastic transcoder to convert the video plus CloudFront for edge delivery and caching. Least privilege between a public web tier and a private database tier. Answer: Database Security Group references the web tier security group as the source, not IP ranges. Millions of requests per hour, millisecond latency, least operational overhead. Answer: Serverless stack with Lambda and DynamoDB. Convert voice recordings to text and automatically remove personally identifiable information. Answer: Amazon Transcribe with PII redaction. Unpredictable access pattern. Must survive loss of an availability zone. Minimum cost. Answer: S3 intelligent tiering. Windows application needs SQL Server native backups and a shared Windows file share. Answer: SQL Server on EC2 plus FSX for Windows file server. Native versioning, shared access across instances, no internet access allowed. Answer: S3 with instances in a private subnet reaching the bucket through a gateway VPC endpoint. Share a snapshot encrypted with a KMS customer managed key with another AWS account. Answer: Copy the snapshot with a shareable customer managed key, then share the copy with the other account. Private access to one service in a partner's account with no internet, direct connect, or VPN. Answer: AWS Private Link, an NLB on the provider side and an interface endpoint on the consumer side. On-premises Active Directory, many accounts in AWS organizations, least ongoing management. Answer: AD connector with IAM Identity Center and permission sets. In-memory live leaderboard needing high availability, low latency, real-time processing. Answer: Elasticache for Redis plus DynamoDB DAX. Dedicated, encrypted, low latency, high throughput link from the data center to AWS. Answer: Direct connect with a VPN running over it for encryption. Fully serverless ingest and storage of changing sensor volumes. No manually provision capacity. Answer: SQSQ, Lambda polling it in batches, and DynamoDB for storage. Location data ingested through a REST API and analyzed in real time. Answer: API gateway in front of Kinesis data analytics. Identify invalid S3 lifecycle storage class transitions. Answer: Transitions back to S3 standard are invalid, and one zone IA cannot move to standard IA or intelligent tiering. Teams in other regions must collaborate on one EFS file system without copies. Answer: Inter-region VPC peering, so remote VPCs mount the same EFS file system. Speed up a dynamic website whose backend must stay on premises in the United States. Answer: CloudFront with a custom origin pointing at the on-premises servers. Code-free data preparation with data, profiling, and shareable recipes. Answer: AWS Glue Data Brew. UDP traffic, fast regional failover. Company keeps its own custom DNS service. Answer: AWS Global Accelerator with the custom DNS pointing at its static IP addresses. Intermediary query data kept only 24 hours but heavily read. Answer: S3 standard because the data lives less than 30 days and is accessed frequently. Block access from 2 countries and allow only the home country behind an ALB. Answer: AWS WEF GeoMatch rule attached to the application load balancer. High availability with content-based routing to different target groups. Answer: application load balancer with an auto-scaling group for self-healing. Lambda must access an EFS file system that resides in a separate AWS account. Answer: EFS resource policy, shared or peered VPC, and an EFS access point. Major traffic spikes, updates processed in order of receipt, minimal management overhead. Answer: Kinesis data streams with Lambda writing into DynamoDB. Checklist of IAM best practices for a new DevOps engineer. Answer: enable MFA for privileged users and log all account activity with CloudTrail. Policy grants S3 list bucket and S3 delete object, but objects still cannot be deleted. Answer: S3 delete object needs the object ARN, meaning bucket name followed by /*, not the bucket ARN. Order the storage charges for 1 GB file on S3, EFS, and a 100 GB EBS volume. Answer: EBS is the most expensive because you pay for the provision size, not the data stored. Different retention periods needed for different objects. Object lock rules not working as expected. Answer: object lock retention applies per object version with its own retain until date and mode. Fastest way to upload a 2 GB file from an on-premises data center to S3. Answer: multi-part upload combined with S3 transfer acceleration. Lightweight validation step, then long-running compute and memory-intensive backend. No servers. Answer: API gateway with Lambda for validation and ECS on Fargate for the long-running work. Massively parallel data warehouse with machine learning and SQL, serverless preferred. Answer: Redshift serverless with Redshift ML. High traffic, messages processed exactly once with no loss of data, buffer between tiers. Answer: SQS FIFO-Q. Security recommendations when creating the AWS account root user. Answer: set a strong password and enable MFA, and do not create access keys for root. Which EBS volume types cannot be used as boot volumes? Answer: ST1 and SC1, the HDD-backed volume types. Resolve on-premises private DNS records from inside a VPC over a site-to-site VPN. Answer: Route 53 outbound resolver endpoint with a forwarding rule. EKS microservices strictly privilege, so UI pods reach only DynamoDB. Answer: IAM roles for service accounts, giving each pod its own service account and IAM role. Extract custom entities like ingredient names from text with no in-house ML experts. Answer: Amazon comprehend custom entity recognition. Some tables must be global and others regional. Stack already on Aurora. Minimal refactoring. Answer: Aurora Global Database for the global tables plus a regional Aurora cluster for the rest. Automated near real-time warning on a spike of illegal API calls. Answer: CloudWatch logs metric filter on CloudTrail logs with an alarm sending to SNS. Modernize Kubernetes on-premises while data and compute stay physically in the data center. Answer: AWS Outposts running EKS on-premises. Allow live stream content only to users in specific countries. Answer: CloudFront Geo-Restriction plus Route 53 Geolocation Routing. Data accessed only twice a year, but needs millisecond retrieval, cheapest class. Answer: S3 Standard IA, infrequent access with instant retrieval at low cost. Route to different backend services by URL path, same hostname. Answer: YLB path-based routing. For example, /orders versus /products. AMI created in region A from a snapshot, then copied to region B. Answer: copying the AMI creates an AMI and a snapshot in region B, plus the launched instance. S3 transfer acceleration did not actually accelerate the upload from the internet. Answer: no S3 transfer acceleration charge is applied when the transfer is not accelerated. Interruptible, fault-tolerant job of 60 minutes, lowest possible cost. Answer: spot instances, not Lambda, because the task runs longer than 15 minutes. Migrate Microsoft SQL Server to Aurora PostgreSQL while keeping T-SQL queries. Answer: schema conversion tool and DMS, plus Babelfish to keep T-SQL working. Restrict which EC2 instances can read from an EFS file system. Answer: VPC security groups on the mount targets, plus an IAM policy for access control. Share a copy of sensitive database with an external auditor's own AWS account. Answer: share an encrypted RDS snapshot and grant that account access to the KMS key. Raw zone kept 5 years for compliance. Refined zone queried ad hoc with Athena. Answer: Glacier Deep Archive for the raw zone. Compressed columnar format for the refined zone. Managed SMB shared file storage with minimal ongoing operational tasks. Answer: FSX for Windows File Server, a fully managed SMB share. Private hosted zone associated with a VPC, but queries remain unresolved. Answer: enable the VPC attributes, enable DNS support, and enable DNS hostnames. Same key must encrypt and decrypt SSE-KMS data in 2 AWS regions. Answer: KMS multi-region key with a new bucket and key, plus S3 cross-region replication. IAM policy condition uses AWS source IP for EC2 run instances. Answer: AWS source IP is the source IP of the API caller, not the IP of the resource. Containerized serverless scripts up to 30 minutes, auto-scaling, event-triggered. Answer: ECS Fargate, invoked by Event Bridge Scheduler or events, since Lambda caps at 15 minutes. Fault-tolerant 2-hour job spread across many instance sizes at lowest cost. Answer: Spot Fleet, which spreads capacity across instances of various sizes. RDS may exceed available storage, minimum development and administration effort. Answer: Enable RDS storage auto-scaling. Prevent even a member account root user from changing a mandatory CloudTrail config. Answer: Service control policy, because an IAM policy cannot restrict the root user. Process messages in order per source system. Consumer scale to number of systems. Answer: SQS FIFO queue using a message group ID per desktop system. Highly available encrypted Microsoft SQL Server with minimal database management. Answer: RDS for SQL Server in a multi-availability zone deployment with KMS encryption. Cross-account write into an S3 bucket, for example Redshift unload. Answer: The writing account owns the object, so the bucket owner has no access by default. Slow application load times for customers in another region, such as Europe. Answer: Local web fleet with Route 53 latency-based routing plus a cross-region red replica. IAM policy condition uses AWS requested region for EC2 run instances. Answer: AWS requested region is the target region of the request. The call can come from anywhere. Scalable serverless static website, cost-optimal and high performance. Answer: S3 for hosting, CloudFront for delivery, and a Route 53 alias record. Move on-premises backups via Snowball into the cheapest long-term archival tier. Answer: Land in S3, then a lifecycle policy to Glacier Deep Archive. 70 always available instances plus 30 delay-tolerant batch instances, most cost-optimal. Answer: Reserved instances for the always-on baseline and spot instances for the batch jobs. Web tier in security group, a must-reach the database on port 1433. Answer: Security group referencing, outbound in Group A to Group B, inbound in Group B from Group A. Data transfer charges for RDS red replicas used for read scalability. Answer: Only cross-region replication traffic is charged. Same region transfer is free. Analyze emotional tone and subject matter of extracted text. Least operational burden. Answer: Amazon Comprehend, fully managed sentiment and entity detection. Policy denies outside a region and allows by AWS source IP for EC2 terminate instances? Answer: termination is allowed only in US West 1 and only from the permitted source IP. API gateway must be callable only from trusted IP addresses, least operational complexity. Answer: API gateway resource policy with an AWS source IP condition, not a security group. Near real-time image processing on upload, 3 minutes and 512 megabytes, most cost-effective. Answer: S3 event notification to SQS to Lambda, since processing is under 15 minutes. Configure security groups for ALB, EC2 web tier, and RDS PostgreSQL. Answer: ALB allows 443 from anywhere. EC2 allows 80 from the ALB group. RDS allows 5432 from the EC2 group. Shared access to common services from all VPCs. Transit Gateway Hub and Spoke already exists. Answer: a shared services VPC attached to the Transit Gateway. Read-heavy database. Need a full dev copy without loading production. Answer: Aurora with a restore from automated backups into a new dev database. EC2 instances in multiple accounts in one region must communicate privately, cheapest. Answer: VPC sharing through AWS Resource Access Manager. IAM policy granting read-only access to an S3 bucket. Answer: S3 list bucket on the bucket ARN and S3 get object on the bucket ARN with /star. 80 instances needed 24/7 all year plus spikes up to 300 instances. Answer: reserve instances for the steady baseline and an auto-scaling group with on-demand or spot for the spikes. Highly available scalable web app with protection against common web exploits. Answer: auto-scaling group across multiple availability zones behind an ALB, with AWS WAF attached to the ALB. Replace the Windows Distributed File System Replication Service across Windows servers. Answer: FSX for Windows File Server. Block a specific malicious IP address hitting a CloudFront distribution. Answer: AWS WAF IP match set rule with a block action on the distribution. Remove single point of failure, MySQL compatible auto-scaling database, minimal overhead. Answer: EC2 in an auto-scaling group, behind an ALB with Aurora Serverless v2. Migrate a Kubernetes microservices app using AMQP with minimal code changes. Answer: EKS on Fargate with Amazon MQ for the AMQP messaging. Decouple user authentication behind an application load balancer, minimal development. Answer: Cognito user pools authentication configured on the application load balancer. Shared file system for hundreds of EC2 instances, infrequent files, immediate access, cheap. Answer: EFS standard IA storage class. Each service must access only its own S3 prefix, scalable maintainable permissions. Answer: S3 access points, 1 per consumer, with minimal operational overhead. Encrypt an existing unencrypted RDS database. Answer: take a snapshot, make an encrypted copy with KMS, restore it, then delete the old instance. Avoid repeating a 3-minute bootstrap every time the instance is stopped and started. Answer: EC2 Hibernate, which preserves the in-memory state across stop and start. Which sources are valid in a security group inbound rule? Answer: a CDR, an IP address, another security group, or a prefix list. An Internet Gateway ID is invalid. Nightly batch jobs on Spot instances, capabilities of Spot. Answer: Spot Fleet maintains target capacity. A persistent request reopens, and canceling a request does not terminate the instance. SMB and NTFS with Active Directory, shared by Windows and Linux EC2 instances. Answer: FSX for Windows file server, since it serves SMB with NTFS permissions to both Windows and Linux clients. Validate JWTs from a third-party OIDC provider without custom authentication code. Answer: API Gateway HTTP API with a JWT authorizer, which natively validates tokens and scopes cheaply and fast. Public instance with a public IPv4 address, which component does the address translation? Answer: the Internet Gateway performs the one-to-one NAT, not a NAT instance. Enable SSM and Patch Manager across the whole EC2 fleet without editing IAM roles. Answer: default host management configuration, also called DHMC, in Systems Manager. Serverless cron job for weekly database rollovers taking about 5 minutes. Answer: Event Bridge cron rule triggering a Lambda function. Restrict CloudFront content to supplier IP ranges and allow S3 access only via CloudFront. Answer: WAF-IP set on the distribution, plus CloudFront OAI with a bucket policy on S3. DynamoDB table with corrupted data, roll back to a point before the corruption. Answer: DynamoDB point-in-time recovery. MySQL read replicas falling behind during peak traffic, minimal changes wanted. Answer: migrate to Aurora and use Aurora replicas with auto-scaling to reduce replication lag. Real-time streaming analytics at scale with minimal implementation overhead. Answer: Kinesis data streams, optionally with Lambda or Kinesis data analytics for processing. Decouple fast microservices from slower ones, so each works at its own pace. Answer: SQS as a buffer between the fast and slow tiers. Python API microservice, hundreds of requests per second, minimal operational overhead. Answer: Lambda with API gateway, adding provision concurrency to avoid cold starts. Automate and accelerate online transfer into S3, EFS, or FSX for Windows file server. Answer: AWS Data Sync. Leaderboard with millions of simultaneous reads and real-time low latency. Answer: Elasticache, which offloads read-heavy and compute-intensive workloads. Cost-effective serverless website serving both static and dynamic content. Answer: S3 for the static content plus Lambda, and DynamoDB for the dynamic part, fronted by CloudFront. Private subnet needs outbound IPv4 internet access from a fully managed service. Answer: Net Gateway. Private subnet moving huge volumes to S3 cut the NAT gateway cost. Answer: S3 Gateway VPC endpoint, which is free and bypasses the NAT gateway. One dataset shared over both SMB and NFS with tiering for cold data. Answer: FSX for NetApp on tap. Point www.your-domain.com to an external provider hostname, not the apex. Answer: Route 53 name record. Too many ALB IP addresses across regions to allow in the firewall. Answer: AWS Global Accelerator, which consolidates them into two static Anycast IP addresses. Minimize SQS cost by eliminating empty receive responses. Answer: Enable SQS long polling. Upload and download 10 GB files to S3 from distant regions with lowest latency. Answer: S3 transfer acceleration. 25 VPCs plus on-premises over direct connect, needing full mesh with minimal overhead. Answer: Transit gateway with a transit VIF on direct connect. High S3 outbound data costs while keeping latency low. Answer: Put CloudFront in front of the S3 bucket. Docker workload needing persistent shared storage without managing instances or volumes. Answer: ECS Fargate with EFS, a fully managed persistent file system. Route the root domain apex to www most cost-effectively. Answer: Route 53 alias record, which is free for the apex, unlike a name. Heavy reporting queries is slow production. Capacity is only 50% used. Answer: RDS read replica dedicated to the reports. ECS service slows down during traffic spikes and must scale out. Answer: ECS service auto-scaling driven by the ECS service CPU utilization metric. Deploy one template consistently across many accounts and regions in organizations. Answer: CloudFormation stack sets. Windows applications needing shared SMB storage with a self-managed Active Directory. Answer: FSX for Windows file server joined to the self-managed Active Directory domain. Resolve DNS both from on-premises into the VPC and from the VPC to on-premises. Answer: Route 53 resolver with both inbound and outbound endpoints. Central control over the maximum available permissions for all accounts. Answer: SCPs set the permission ceiling and apply to the member account root, but not to service-linked roles or the management account. Directory-aware SQL Server workload plus a trust with on-premises AD for SSO. Answer: AWS Managed Microsoft AD. Managed DDoS mitigation with expert support and audit logs. Minimal architecture change. Answer: AWS Shield Advanced, which includes the DDoS response team and detailed logs. Application on an EC2 instance needs to access a DynamoDB table in the same account. Answer: an IAM role attached through an instance profile, never access keys. Per client rate limiting, throttling, and usage quotas on an API. Answer: API gateway usage plans combined with API keys. Deploy the same AMI in different AWS accounts and different regions. Answer: copy the AMI cross-region and share it with the accounts. Encryption is preserved. SFTP uploads processed immediately, highly available, over private connectivity. Answer: internal AWS transfer family endpoint, multi-availability zone, writing to S3, with a managed workflow, triggering Lambda. Review all resource configurations, change history, and compliance. Answer: AWS config. Serve static assets cheaply with no infrastructure provisioning. Answer: S3 as the origin with CloudFront in front of it. I/O intensive NoSQL database needing up to 25,000 guaranteed IOPS per volume. Answer: provisioned IOPS SSD o pierwsze. VPC tenancy versus launch template tenancy, which one wins? Answer: if the VPC tenancy is dedicated, all instances are dedicated. If the VPC is default, the launch template decides. Identifies sensitive data in S3 buckets and detect malicious activity against them. Answer: Macy finds the sensitive data. GuardDuty detects the malicious activity. The only resource-based policy that the IAM service itself supports. Answer: the role trust policy, which defines who is allowed to assume the role. Cheap asynchronous job processing, retry on failure, customers willing to wait. Answer: EC2 spot instances with SQS, since the queue retries failed jobs. Client must whitelist one fixed public IP, plus high availability and scaling. Answer: NLB with a static IP fronting an auto-scaling group. Many changing ALB IPs across regions to whitelist need scale with minimal changes. Answer: AWS Global Accelerator, which gives 2 static IP addresses for the firewall. NoSQL database, single-digit millisecond latency, serverless, scales horizontally. Answer: Amazon DynamoDB. Shared file system across multiple availability zones with lowest possible latency. Answer: EFS with a mount target in each availability zone, each instance mounting its own availability zone target. CloudFormation security group ingress with SIG or IP 0.0.0.0/0 and 192.168.1.1/32. Answer: these are security group inbound rules. /0 means everyone, /32 means a single host. Managed database needs maximum possible availability with minimum operational overhead. Answer: reduce multi-availability zone deployment. Prevent accidental deletion of a production DynamoDB table with minimal maintenance. Answer: enable DynamoDB deletion protection on the table. Traffic expected to grow 10x. Content highly dynamic. Infrastructure must scale. Answer: use an auto-scaling group. Several different HTTPS domains behind one ALB with minimal configuration effort. Answer: use SNI to attach multiple certificates to the ALB, not a wildcard certificate. Expensive I/O1 volume is underutilized with only occasional I or O bursts. Answer: migrate the volume to GP2 or GP3 to cut cost. Manage message broker supporting MQTT without changing application logic. Answer: Amazon MQ. ELB host-based routing. What is the rule star.example.com match? Answer: only subdomains such as test.example.com, not the apex and not other top-level domains. Workforce single sign-on across many accounts reusing an existing on-premises Active Directory. Answer: IAM Identity Center with AWS Managed Microsoft AD and a two-way trust. Records immutable for 7 years, immediately available for audit, plus cheap, immutable archive. Answer: S3 Object Lock in compliance mode for immediate access, and S3 Glacier Vault Lock for low-cost archive. Site-to-site VPN throughput is too slow and must be maximized. Answer: Transit Gateway with eCMP across multiple VPN tunnels. S3 Bucket Policy Condition containing both IP address and not IP address. Answer: conditions are ANDed, so the whole CDR is allowed except the excluded IP. High read traffic on RDS. Scale reads without changing core application logic. Answer: add RDS read replicas. DynamoDB hot partition problem. Solve without a lot of application refactoring. Answer: use DynamoDB DAX in front of the table. Read-heavy site, 24-hour stale data acceptable. Cut database load with minimal changes. Answer: enable API gateway caching with a TTL. Dynamically alter the size of the geographic area, sending traffic to a resource. Answer: Route 53 geoproximity routing with a bias value. Grant users in another AWS account access to an S3 bucket. Answer: use a resource-based S3 bucket policy, since a user policy only works inside the same account. Move petabytes of physical tape backups to AWS without changing the backup workflow. Answer: Tape Gateway, the virtual tape library backed by S3 Glacier. Kubernetes HPA scales pods, but the number of EC2 worker nodes stays constant. Answer: add the cluster autoscaler backed by an EC2 auto-scaling group. Connect direct connect links to all VPCs across 2 regions scalably. Answer: use a direct connect gateway, which is global. Connect several VPCs in the same account as cheaply as possible. Answer: VPC peering. At larger scale, use transit gateway instead. Thousands of transient reads and writes per second with minimal latency. Answer: Elasticache for Redis with a TTL on the keys. CloudFront capabilities for routing, security, and high availability. Answer: Cache behaviors for content routing, origin groups for failover, and field-level encryption for protection. Serverless orchestration for Docker containers on AWS. Answer: ECS on Fargate and EKS on Fargate. Unpredictable spiky traffic with idle nights on a DynamoDB table. Answer: Use DynamoDB on-demand capacity mode. Cannot ping EC2 instances in a public subnet of a custom VPC. Answer: Allow ICMP in the security group and route 0.0.0.0/0 to the Internet Gateway in the route table. EC2 security group must allow traffic only from the application load balancer. Answer: Reference the ALB security group as the source, not a CIDR range. Archive one folder of images after 45 days, rarely requested, survive an availability zone failure. Answer: S3 lifecycle rule with a prefix to standard IA, not one zone IA. Omit the prefix to move all objects. Reusable infrastructure template with best practices for all AWS users. Answer: AWS CloudFormation as infrastructure as code. Replace the Lambda to RDS username and password with short-lived credentials. Answer: RDS IAM authentication with an IAM role granting RDS-DB Connect. Connect many VPCs and on-premises networks through a central hub, least operational overhead. Answer: AWS Transit Gateway. SQS consumers with unpredictable message volume, balance cost with availability. Answer: Reserved instances for the baseline plus spot instances for spikes, since SQS processing tolerates interruptions. React automatically to new S3 uploads to generate thumbnails, cheaply and serverless. Answer: S3 event notification triggering a Lambda function. Safely remove instances from load balancer traffic during patching to avoid API timeouts. Answer: SSM maintenance windows with the AWS-C03 patch load balancer instance automation to deregister, then re-register. KMS request costs rising from frequent access, but SSE-KMS must stay. Answer: Enable S3 bucket keys to reduce KMS usage cost. Optimize cost of an image archive, refactoring to managed AWS services allowed. Answer: Move the archive to S3 intelligent tiering. SQL injection and cross-site scripting attacks against CloudFront with an ALB origin. Answer: AWS WAF on the CloudFront distribution or the ALB. Encrypted network-to-network connection from the corporate data center to AWS. Answer: AWS site-to-site VPN using IPsec. Reduce S3 storage cost with unknown access patterns and minimal management. Answer: S3 intelligent tiering. Need EC2 metrics more often than 5 minutes, quick and low maintenance. Answer: Enable EC2 detailed monitoring, which gives 1-minute granularity. SQL sanity checks directly on S3 raw data, cost-effective and no maintenance. Answer: Amazon Athena, serverless SQL straight over S3. Real-time full-text search over stream plus interactive visualizations. Answer: Kinesis plus Amazon Open Source Service plus Amazon QuickSight. Aurora single instance overloaded, need read offload, and high availability. Answer: Add an Aurora replica. It serves the reader endpoint and is a failover target. Immutable compliance control over an archive in S3 Glacier. Answer: S3 Glacier Vault with a vault lock policy. Full load plus CDC replication with auto scaling for fluctuating load. Answer: AWS DMS serverless. Fast independent EBS clones with immediate full performance. Answer: Take an EBS snapshot and enable fast snapshot restore. Scalable serverless ingest with sentiment analysis and 1-year retention. Answer: API Gateway plus SQS plus Lambda plus Amazon comprend plus DynamoDB with TTL. Instance cannot reach the Internet through the Internet Gateway. Answer: Need a 0.0.0.0/0 route to the Internet Gateway and network ACL, allowing inbound and outbound. Maximum I or O performance plus durable storage plus archival of legacy data. Answer: Instant store for I or O, S3 for durability, S3 Glacier for archive. Large database on EC2 needing consistent high IOPS from EBS. Answer: Provisioned IOPS SSD, IO1 volume type. Protect EBS snapshots from accidental deletion and still purge old ones. Answer: Recycle bin retention rule for EBS snapshots. Encrypted connectivity between on-premises and AWS in the fastest possible time. Answer: AWS site-to-site VPN. Block actions when a tag is missing and restrict allowed tag values. Answer: SCP with deny and a tag condition, plus a tag policy for allowed values. Multi-region active-active with local rights and sub-second sync. Answer: DynamoDB global tables. Worm storage where even administrators cannot delete during the retention period. Answer: S3 object lock in compliance mode, not governance mode. On-premises low-latency access to large files stored in S3 cheaply. Answer: S3 file gateway with its local cache. Block countries, but still allow the remote dev team from a blocked country. Answer: AWS WEF-GEO match statement plus an IP set rule with higher priority. Stateless fault-tolerant app. Unpredictable spikes, lowest cost. Answer: AMI plus launch template plus auto scaling group plus ALB using spot instances. Private one-way access to a third-party SaaS API without unsolicited inbound traffic. Answer: AWS private link using an interface endpoint. rarely access critical data, but always instant retrieval and multi-availability, zone durability. Answer: S3 standard and frequent access. Serverless SQL on S3, encrypted at rest, auto-replicated to another region. Answer: Athena plus SSE-KMS with a multi-region key plus cross-region replication from bucket creation. Cut global latency and add automatic fast failover across regions. Answer: AWS Global Accelerator with Anycast IP and health checks. Custom domain HTTPS with a private S3 bucket behind CloudFront. Answer: ACM certificate in US East 1 plus origin access control on the S3 origin. Poor latency uploading and accessing S3 data from remote locations. Stay serverless. Answer: S3 transfer acceleration plus CloudFront with the S3 bucket as origin. Caching layer that also handles geospatial data and advanced data structures. Answer: Amazon Elasticache for Redis. Find resources shared outside the account or organization by analyzing policies. Answer: IAM Access Analyzer. Near real-time stream with several independent consumers of the same data. Answer: Kinesis data streams with multiple consumers. Keep log from ephemeral auto-scaled EC2 instances after they terminate. Answer: CloudWatch Logs agent streaming logs off-host into CloudWatch Logs. Protect an application hosted on EC2 with AWS WAF. Answer: Front it with CloudFront or an ALB and attach a web ACL. WAF cannot attach directly to EC2. Private uploads to S3 from a VPC without touching the public internet. Answer: Gateway VPC endpoint for S3, which is free. Many single put record calls causing provision throughput exceeded exception. Keep costs low. Answer: Batch the messages using the Kinesis put records API. Convert call audio to text, then run ad hoc SQL over S3. Answer: Amazon Transcribe plus Amazon Athena. Distributed in-memory session storage behind a load balancer. Answer: Amazon Elasticache. Global user base needing low latency and fault tolerance across geographies. Answer: DynamoDB global tables with provision capacity auto-scaling, least overhead and cost. Bulk online migration of hundreds of terabytes to S3 with ongoing file access. Answer: AWS Data Sync for the migration plus file gateway for continued file access. Speed up both uploads and downloads of S3 images without redesigning the app. Answer: CloudFront for downloads and S3 transfer acceleration for uploads. Users must reach S3 only through CloudFront and never directly. Answer: Keep the bucket private and grant an origin access identity or origin access control in the bucket policy. Cold data. Keep SQL querying available immediately. Save maximum cost. Answer: S3 standard and frequent access plus Amazon Athena. EC2 instance querying IP addresses used for cryptocurrency mining. Answer: Amazon Guard Duty. Analyze S3 access patterns to move data to the right storage class. Answer: S3 storage class analysis, which only recommends the standard to standard IA transition. Multi-account governance with automatic guardrails and logging on new accounts. Answer: AWS Control Tower, and share a common network with a shared VPC through AWS RAM. Very low latency storage that need not persist when the instance terminates. Answer: EC2 instance store, ephemeral host local disk, not transferable and not in an AMI. Key characteristics of EC2 spot instances and spot fleets. Answer: Spot is cheap, interruptible capacity. Spot fleet mixes spot with optional on-demand up to target capacity. Private subnet needs access to both S3 and DynamoDB. Answer: A separate gateway VPC endpoint for each, added as a target in the route table. Clients flooding the ALB above a request per second threshold. Answer: AWS WAF rate-based rule. Many VPCs across accounts in a star network plus on-premises via Direct Connect. Answer: AWS Transit Gateway. Grant the same permission set to a subset of users quickly with minimal changes. Answer: Create an IAM group and attach the policy to it. Analytics reporting slows down the production RDS database. Answer: RDS read replica, size with the same capacity as the primary, and point analytics edit. Directory-aware workloads in AWS needing a trust with on-premises Microsoft Active Directory. Answer: AWS Managed Microsoft AD, because it supports trust relationships with existing on-premises Microsoft Active Directory. Secure connectivity to AWS quickly and cheaply, low bandwidth needs. Answer: Site-to-site VPN, the fastest and most cost-effective option for small traffic volumes. Centrally configure and manage firewall rules across an AWS organization. Answer: AWS Firewall Manager, which manages WAF rules, security groups, and shield advanced protections. PuSIX compliant file system, data accessed about 1 week per year, lowest cost. Answer: EFS infrequent access, not S3, because the workload requires a PuSIX file system. Pro user photos must be processed before light user photos. Answer: 2 SQS queues, 1 per class, and the consumer polls the priority queue first. Highly available shared document store, documents returned immediately, spanning availability zones. Answer: Amazon S3, not EBS and not Glacier, because it is highly available across availability zones. Some objects accessed frequently, others sit idle, access pattern unpredictable. Answer: S3 intelligent tiering, which tiers automatically with no custom EC2 monitoring needed. Nightly batch job, 30 minutes, tolerates interruption and can start over. Answer: EC2 spot instance with a persistent request, so the job restarts automatically after interruption. Postpone delivery of new messages to the queue for a few seconds. Answer: SQS delay queue, configured with the delay seconds attribute. Tightly coupled HPC genome analysis, needing low-latency internode networking. Answer: Elastic Fabric Adapter, which gives HPC nodes low-latency, high-throughput communication. Real-time streaming, serverless, and a processing job that takes 30 minutes. Answer: Kinesis data streams for ingest plus Fargate for processing, bypassing the 15-minute Lambda limit. Federated access with least privilege and minimal manual administrative work. Answer: IAM Identity Center permission sets assigned to directory groups. Which action is not allowed for elastic load balancing with an EC2 fleet? Answer: ELB is regional, so spreading instances across two regions behind one ELB is not allowed. Highly available bastion host solution for SSH access. Answer: Public NLB at layer 4 with an auto-scaling group across availability zones, not ALB. DynamoDB with millions of requests per second needing low predictable read latency. Answer: DAX plus Elasticache as the caching layer in front of DynamoDB. Relational OLTP workload with unpredictable spikes needing automatic scaling. Answer: Aurora Serverless, which scales capacity automatically for unpredictable relational workloads. Account notifications categorized by billing, security, and operations without depending on individuals. Answer: Set the root user email to a shared mailbox and configure alternate contacts pointing to distribution lists. Alert automatically when compute savings plans coverage falls below a defined threshold. Answer: AWS budgets, using a coverage budget with notifications. Route 53 private hosted zone for an internal custom domain inside of VPC. Answer: Enable both VPC settings, enable DNS support, and enable DNS hostnames. Analytics on the same database slows e-commerce app. Most cost-optimal fix. Answer: RDS read replica in the same region and run the analytics workload against it. Real-time processing with unpredictable spikes and no manual provisioning. Answer: Kinesis data streams in on-demand mode plus Lambda for serverless processing. Lift and shift legacy virtual machines rapidly without extensive refactoring. Answer: AWS MGN, following the workflow of install agent, then test, then cut over. Shared data access with EBS multi-attach volumes in the same availability zone. Answer: EBS multi-attach is supported only on provisioned IOPS SSD volumes, IO1 or IO2. Public web application needing TLS termination offloaded and maximum security. Answer: NLB in the public subnet for TLS offload, with the auto-scaling group in the private subnet. High-volume image transformation jobs, no servers to manage, job sequencing needed. Answer: AWS batch for the jobs, step functions for orchestration, and S3 for storage. Run custom scripts only once during EC2 launch with minimal effort. Answer: EC2 user data, which runs the script once at instance launch. See which buckets lack versioning across all regions and accounts. Minimal effort. Answer: S3 storage lens, which gives organization-wide visibility into S3 configuration. Microservices app has intermittent slow responses. Find which call adds latency. Answer: AWS X-Ray for end-to-end tracing across the microservice chain. Share VPC subnets and transit gateway attachments across organization accounts without recreating networking. Answer: AWS Resource Access Manager. Apply one WAF rule group and shield advanced to all current and future ELBs. Answer: AWS Firewall Manager, which enforces policies across all current and future accounts and resources. Clients request exactly the fields they need: real-time push and offline sync. Answer: AWS App Sync, using GraphQL. Thousands of independent, long-running jobs, interruption-tolerant, want spot and scale to 0. Answer: AWS Batch. Teams self-provision only pre-approved, standardized architectures with governance enforced. Answer: AWS Service Catalog, which prevents non-compliant deployments. Inventory on-premises servers with dependencies and track migration progress in one place. Answer: Application Discovery Service for the inventory plus Migration Hub for tracking. Move off self-managed Apache Kafka on EC2, but keep existing Kafka APIs and tooling. Answer: Amazon MSK, which offloads broker provisioning, patching, and scaling. Most granular line item billing data per resource per hour with tags. Answer: AWS Cost and Usage Report, delivered to Amazon S3 and queryable with Athena. Section B. Confusable pairs. This is where most mistakes happen. Audit key rotation across all users and in use permissions on a role. Answer: Credentials report for key rotation across users. Access advisor for in-use permissions on a role. A single rack failure must affect no more than one of 6 instances. Answer: Spread placement group. Each instance sits on distinct hardware. Maximum local I or O for temporary scratch data that need not survive. Answer: EC2 instance store, highest local performance but ephemeral. Many instances across several availability zones, write to shared storage that grows. Answer: Amazon EFS, shared file system across availability zones that grows automatically. Need automatic failover plus readable standbys in a single region. Answer: RDS multi-availability zone DB cluster. Its standby instances also serve read traffic. Shared uploads across EC2 instances in several availability zones. No code changes. Answer: Amazon EFS mounted on all instances as shared storage. Server-side encryption with key usage auditable in CloudTrail and enforced on upload. Answer: SSE-KMS with a customer-managed key, plus a bucket policy that denies non-compliant uploads. Rewrite viewer request URLs and add response headers at the lowest cost. Answer: CloudFront functions, sub-millisecond execution on viewer request and viewer response. Restrict access to dozens of protected files without a shareable, reusable link. Answer: CloudFront signed cookies. Use signed URLs only for single-file, time-limited access. On-premises NFS or SMB access to files stored in S3 with a local cache. Answer: S3 file gateway. It caches hot data locally. Data sync is only for transfers. Keep the entire dataset on premises locally. Back it up to AWS. Answer: volume gateway in store mode. Backups go to S3 as EBS snapshots. Storage shared and writable by all tasks. Persistent across multi-availability zone. Answer: Amazon EFS. ECS task cannot pull the ECR image or cannot write to DynamoDB. Answer: image pull failure means task execution role. Application access failure means task role. DynamoDB traffic is predictable and steady. Minimize cost. Answer: provision mode with auto-scaling, not on demand. Social login and direct access to an AWS resource with no backend. Answer: Cognito user pools for the JWT sign-in, identity pools for temporary STS credentials. New index needed on an existing DynamoDB table. Answer: only a GSI is possible, and it is eventually consistent. An LSI is strongly consistent, but only a table creation. High throughput, short-running tasks, exactly once execution not required. Answer: step functions, express workflow. An SCP explicitly denies the action, but the user has administrator access. Answer: the action is denied. Effective permissions are the intersection of SCP and IAM. Edge-optimized API gateway endpoint with an ACM certificate. Answer: the certificate must be in US East 1. Need 24/7 shield response, team access, and cost protection. Answer: AWS Shield Advanced, not Shield Standard. Need NAT and SSH entry from one resource on the tightest budget. Answer: NAT instance, acting as both NAT and Bastion host. Need reject metadata or the actual packet payload for forensics. Answer: VPC flow log for the metadata, VPC traffic mirroring for the payload. Formal workload review across all 6 pillars with high-risk issues and a shareable report. Answer: AWS well-architected tool, not trusted advisor. Prevent developers from ever being granted overprivileged permissions. Answer: permissions boundary, which sets the maximum permissions ceiling for the identity. Built-in user management to authorize API calls in API gateway. Answer: Amazon Cognito user pools, not identity pools. Oracle needing OS access and customizations, plus high availability and minimal maintenance. Answer: RDS custom for Oracle with multi-availability zone. Which services are reachable through a VPC gateway endpoint? Answer: only S3 and DynamoDB. Long-term server-bound or BYOL licenses tied to sockets and cores. Answer: EC2 dedicated hosts, not dedicated instances. VPC components must reach Amazon SQS without using the public internet. Answer: interface VPC endpoint, that is private link. Gateway endpoints do not support SQS. Auto-scaling group mixing on-demand and spot across multiple instance types. Answer: only a launch template supports this, not a launch configuration. Pricing difference between the ECS-EC2 launch type and the Fargate launch type. Answer: EC2 launch type is billed as EC2 plus EBS. Fargate is billed on requested vCPU and memory. High network performance between nodes. Performance is the only measure. Answer: cluster placement group. Archive about 5 petabytes from on-premises in a cheap, durable, long-term storage. Answer: snowball edge into S3, then a lifecycle policy to Glacier. Not VPN or direct connect, and not straight to Glacier. Configuration options that differ between an NAT instance and an NAT gateway. Answer: a NAT instance supports security groups, use as a bastion host, and port forwarding. A NAT gateway supports none of these. Users must see all documents at once from multiple EC2 instances across availability zones. Answer: Amazon EFS, a shared file system accessible from several EC2 instances in different availability zones. VoIP over UDP, lowest latency routing across regions, and automated cross-region failover. Answer: AWS Global Accelerator in front of a network load balancer. Near real-time stream of millions of transactions shared with several internal consumers. Answer: Kinesis data streams with Lambda to process records and write them into DynamoDB. Steady time-sensitive backups to S3 without consuming limited internet bandwidth for internal users. Answer: AWS Direct Connect, a dedicated link with minimal impact on the internet connection. Encryption at rest. Key usage must be logged for audit. Keys rotated every year. Answer: SSE-KMS with automatic key rotation, because KMS logs key usage for auditing. HPC needs lowest possible node-to-node latency and a shared block device volume. Answer: cluster placement group with EBS multi-attach on I/O1 or I/O2 volumes. DynamoDB access with no internet and write access to only specific tables. Answer: gateway VPC endpoint for DynamoDB with an endpoint policy limiting access to those tables. Remote devices use UDP, need minimum latency and rapid failover to another region. Answer: AWS Global Accelerator with a network load balancer. Move 50 terabytes with no network bandwidth and run the job in AWS. Answer: snowball edge with EC2 compute, not data sync and not glue. Data must be stored across multiple availability zones for durability. High availability not needed, cheapest. Answer: Aurora cluster with a primary instance plus one red replica. On-premises NFS network attached storage. Migrate files to S3 with a manage tool. Answer: S3 file gateway. Reduce data transfer fees for S3 access from a VPC in the same region. Answer: S3 Gateway VPC endpoint, which is free of charge. 750 terabytes over a low bandwidth link. Avoids saturating the internet connection. Answer: AWS Snowball into S3, then an S3 lifecycle rule to move data to Glacier. Web servers accept HTTPS from anywhere. App tier must allow least access required. Answer: security groups referencing the source security group, not network ACLs. Shared persistent storage for multiple Fargate containers. Highly available, minimal overhead. Answer: Amazon EFS. Maximum random I/O performance. The application replicates data across instances itself. Answer: Instant Store, since durability is handled by the application. Keep existing NFS tools and protocols. Automatically tier rarely accessed data cheaply. Answer: S3 file gateway with S3 lifecycle rules. Company will not supply its own keys, but needs an audit trail of who used the key and when. Answer: SSE-KMS. High-performance computing, tightly coupled instances needing lowest network latency. Answer: Cluster placement group. Compare replication of RDS multi-availability zone deployment versus read replicas. Answer: Multi-availability zone is synchronous for high availability. Read replicas are asynchronous for read scaling. Detect malicious activity against S3 data and scan EC2 instances for vulnerabilities. Answer: Guard duty for the malicious activity in S3. Inspector for the EC2 vulnerabilities. Migrate a Microsoft distributed file system workload in a hybrid environment. Answer: FSX for Windows File Server, not FSX for Lustre. API Gateway must support both stateless and stateful client-server communication. Answer: REST API for stateless, WebSocket API for stateful full duplex communication. Reduce global latency while keeping existing NLBs and EC2 infrastructure. Answer: Global accelerator with the NLBs as endpoints, not CloudFront. Instances behind an ALB using EBS each show a different subset of uploaded files. Answer: EBS is not shared, so use EFS or S3 for shared storage. EFS performance mode for highly parallel big data processing workflows. Answer: Max I/O performance mode. Keep your own external encryption key on premises, but let S3 do the encryption. Answer: SSE-C, server-side encryption with customer-provided keys. Single-tenant hardware, most cost-effective, no BYOL or host visibility needed. Answer: dedicated instances cheaper than dedicated hosts. Let users attach manage policies, but prevent granting themselves administrator access. Answer: permissions boundary applied to each IAM user. Key usage must be logged for audit and keys rotated yearly, most operationally efficient. Answer: SSE-KMS with automatic key rotation for encryption at rest. Improve availability in one region for U.S. users, most resource efficient. Answer: instances in 2 availability zones behind an ELB with RDS multi-availability zone, not a read replica. Inbound is open everywhere, but the connection still fails. Answer: add an outbound rule for the ephemeral ports on a network ACL, because a network ACL is stateless. Encrypt each S3 object with a different key without manual work or splitting data. Answer: SSE-C03, because it uses a unique per-object key managed entirely by S3. Shared EFS file system under 1 terabyte, but with high steady input-output. Answer: EFS provision throughput, because throughput is not tied to the small stored volume. Same physical availability zone across 2 AWS accounts appears different. Answer: map by availability zone ID, not by availability zone name, because names are randomized per account. Hybrid setup, primary data in S3 with only hot logs cached locally. Answer: storage gateway volume gateway in cached volumes mode. S3 encrypted at rest with automatic yearly key rotation and least operational overhead. Answer: SSE-KMS with a customer-managed key that has automatic rotation enabled. Extend on-premises storage to the cloud, but keep hot data cached locally. Answer: volume gateway in cached volumes mode, avoiding retrieval fees and delays. I or O heavy Aurora workload, needing predictable pricing without per request I or O charges. Answer: Aurora I or O optimized storage configuration. Sporadic EFS bursts, low average daily throughput, no manual tuning wanted. Answer: EFS bursting throughput mode. Tightly coupled HPC with low latency, node-to-node communication, and high throughput. Answer: cluster placement group. TCP and UDP application needing global low latency across multiple regions. Answer: NLB, not ALB, with AWS Global Accelerator. Use IP-based target groups for on-premises targets. Speed up a dynamic real-time API globally without migrating the application. Answer: AWS Global Accelerator, not CloudFront caching and not Route 53. Temporary auditable SSH from the console without long-term key pairs. Answer: EC2 Instance Connect, ephemeral access that can be revoked immediately. Serverless SFTP with high IOPS and strict IP-based restrictions for external users. Answer: Amazon EFS with AWS Transfer Family on a VPC endpoint with an elastic IP. Temporary scratch disk with maximum IOPS at low cost. Answer: EC2 Instance Store. Private S3 access with no internet traffic, most cost-effective. Answer: Gateway VPC endpoint, not an interface endpoint and not an AT gateway. Give cognito-authenticated users fine-grained S3 access on a private network. Answer: Cognito Identity Pool issuing an IAM role via STS, plus an S3 VPC endpoint for privacy. Read only the first 250 bytes of each of 100,000 S3 objects efficiently. Answer: Byte range fetch, that is a ranged get, not S3 select. Single-tenant hardware isolation for compliance at the lowest cost. Answer: Dedicated instances, dedicated hosts cost more and suit BYOL or host visibility. Highly confidential contracts must be encrypted with the company's proprietary algorithm. Answer: Client-side encryption, because a proprietary algorithm cannot be used with server-side encryption. Predictable usage, broadest service coverage, fewest savings plans, plus machine learning. Answer: Compute savings plan covering EC2, Fargate, and Lambda, plus a separate SageMaker savings plan. Access rate drops sharply. Data must stay immediately retrievable, kept 4 years. Answer: S3 Glacier Instant Retrieval, cheaper than standard IA for rarely accessed but instantly retrievable data. Caching service required that supports multi-threading. Answer: Elasticache for Memcached, which is multi-threaded rather than Redis. Deliver restricted content only to genuine subscribers of the service. Answer: CloudFront signed URLs and signed cookies. Access Amazon S3 directly from on-premises over a direct connect connection. Answer: Public VIF, since private VIF reaches only resources inside a VPC. BYOL licenses bound to physical sockets or cores need visibility and usage tracking. Answer: Dedicated hosts plus AWS License Manager, not dedicated instances. Continuously collect evidence and produce audit-ready reports for PCI DSS and SOC 2. Answer: AWS Audit Manager, which reduces manual evidence gathering. Download the official AWS SOC 2 and PCI DSS compliance reports. Answer: AWS Artifact, the self-service portal for AWS compliance reports. Same AWS services and APIs on-premises in your own data center for data residency. Answer: AWS Outposts. Ultra-low latency for mobile users at the edge of 5G carrier networks. Answer: AWS Wavelength, so traffic does not traverse the internet back to a region. Section F1. High availability building blocks. Instance passes EC2 status checks, but the app returns 5XX. Auto-scaling group never replaces it. Answer: Set the auto-scaling group health check type to YELB, so the load balancer health check drives replacement. In-flight requests cut off on deregistration, but deployment must stay fast. Answer: Set the YELB deregistration delay, connection draining, to about 30 seconds. A poison message is retried forever and blocks the queue. Answer: SQS dead letter queue with a redrive policy using max receive count. A single NAT gateway serves all availability zones. Answer: that is a single point of failure. Deploy one NAT gateway per availability zone. Site works by instance IP, but the ELB marks all targets unhealthy. Answer: the security group does not allow traffic from the ELB, or the health check path is wrong. EC2 not exposed to internet, needs outbound access, must be highly available. Answer: private subnets with an NAT gateway in 2 availability zones and a public ELB in public subnets. Avoid any single point of failure, scale on demand, prevent database data loss. Answer: auto-scaling group across multiple availability zones with RDS multi-availability zone for the database. Everything is in a single availability zone and must become highly available. Answer: create a subnet in each availability zone and enable RDS multi-availability zone, since a subnet alone is not multi-availability zone. 2-tier architecture in a single region must be highly available. Answer: EC2 instances in 2 or more availability zones with RDS multi-availability zone. Stateless application and MySQL database must become highly available without changing the code. Answer: RDS for MySQL multi-availability zone with an ALB and auto-scaling group across 2 availability zones. VPN tunnels terminate on a single customer gateway device, a single point of failure. Answer: add a second VPN connection from a second customer gateway device in the data center. Maintain one EC2 instance in an auto-scaling group without it being replaced. Answer: put the instance into the standby state or suspend or replace unhealthy process. Order of auto-scaling actions for unhealthy instances versus availability zone rebalancing. Answer: unhealthy instances are terminated first, then launched. Rebalancing launches first, then terminates. Auto-scaling group default termination policy picks an instance inside one availability zone. Answer: oldest launch configuration first, then oldest launch template, then closest to the next billing hour. Auto-scaling group is not terminating an unhealthy EC2 instance. Troubleshoot why. Answer: health check grace period is not expired, minimum size was raised, or the instance is impaired but not unhealthy. At least 4 instances always available surviving an availability zone failure, minimum cost. Answer: 2 instances in each of 3 availability zones, 6 instances total. Minimize data loss, every transaction stored on at least 2 nodes. Answer: RDS multi-availability zone, which replicates synchronously to the standby. Private subnets across 3 availability zones need highly available outbound IPv4 access. Answer: a NAT gateway in a public subnet in each availability zone. Application in a single availability zone went offline when that availability zone failed. Answer: spread the auto-scaling group and the ALB across multiple availability zones using a subnet in each. Malformed message fails repeatedly, is retried forever, and blocks the queue. Answer: SQS dead letter queue with a max receive count redrive policy. Application process hangs, but the instance keeps running, must be replaced automatically. Answer: enable YELB health checks in the auto scaling group instead of EC2 health checks. Default auto scaling group termination policy, which instance is removed on scale-in. Answer: the availability zone with the most instances first, then the oldest launch template or launch configuration. High availability plus cost optimization for variable load with idle periods. Answer: auto-scaling group minimum capacity of 2 as the HA baseline. Reserve instances for steady load, on demand for peaks. ALB marks instance unhealthy, but the auto-scaling group never provisions a replacement. Answer: the auto-scaling group health check type is EC2. Change it to YELB to react to application failures. Single EC2 instance with MySQL need high availability and better read performance. Answer: auto-scaling group across availability zones behind an ALB and Aurora with read replicas for the database. Handle SQS messages that repeatedly fail processing. Answer: use an SQS dead letter queue. Service must survive an availability zone failure while keeping baseline of an instances. Answer: run in instances in each of 2 availability zones, minimum 2 times n, auto-scaling group within 1 region. Highly available outbound internet access from private subnets in 2 availability zones. Answer: a NAT gateway in a public subnet of every availability zone. Single web server monolith must recover automatically from availability zone failure, cheaply. Answer: auto-scaling group with min, max, and desired of 1 across 2 availability zones, plus elastic IP. Single EC2 instance and single RDS MySQL instance need high availability, least maintenance. Answer: auto-scaling group across availability zones behind an ALB plus RDS multi-availability zone, not a read replica. Standalone legacy VMs cannot be containerized or re-architected, need fault tolerance. Answer: build an AMI and run 2 active EC2 instances in different availability zones behind an NLB. Outbound internet from private subnets across 3 availability zones survives 1 availability zone failure. Answer: 1 NAT gateway in each availability zone, removing the single point of failure. Section F2: disaster recovery strategies. Aurora must survive a full region failure with RTO under 1 minute. Answer: Aurora Global Database, cross-region replication with failover in under 1 minute. Active-passive disaster recovery with automatic failover when the primary fails. Answer: Route 53 failover routing policy with a health check on the primary. Redshift cluster must be restorable in another region. Answer: enable cross-region snapshot copy. RTO in minutes and RPO of an hour cannot run full-scale continuously. Answer: warm standby. RTO of tens of minutes, RPO of minutes, and lowest cost. Answer: Pilot Light. The database replica runs continuously and compute starts only at failover. Cross-region DR. Database up to date with least latency. Reduced capacity that scales up. Answer. Aurora Global Database with a warm standby in the DR region for minimal RTO. Serve a backup static error page when the primary website is unavailable, minimal overhead. Answer. Route 53 active passive failover with health check, pointing to an S3 static page. RTO of 30 minutes. Some data loss acceptable. DR site idle while primary is healthy. Answer. Second region with Route 53 failover and Aurora restored from snapshot, a warm standby. Least downtime failover on AWS with data uniform between AWS and on-premises. Answer. Warm standby, pre-running EC2 with ELB and auto scaling group. Route 53 failover, storage gateway for data. Aurora with lowest latency across several geographies. RPO of seconds and RTO of minutes. Answer. Aurora Global Database. RTO of a few minutes. RPO of seconds, scaled down but fully functional copy, always running. Answer. Warm standby, scaled up on failover. Non-critical reporting app, RTO and RPO of several hours, as cheap as possible. Answer. Backup and restore, using cross-region snapshots. Cross-region disaster recovery, RTO under a minute, replication lag under 1 second. Answer. Aurora Global Database, which also serves fast local reads in the secondary region. Globally distributed low-latency reads and writes that survive a region failure. Answer. DynamoDB Global Tables, which are active across regions. All traffic to the primary site, standby ELB used only on failure. Answer. Route 53 failover routing with health checks, an active passive setup. Automatically updated copy of every object in a second region without manual intervention. Answer. S3 cross-region replication. Recover EBS volume data in a different region, automated and cheap for rare recovery. Answer. Automated snapshots with cross-region copy using Data Lifecycle Manager. Core database replicated to a second region. Servers only as AMIs that are not running. Answer. Pilot Light. Dedicated private primary link plus encrypted internet backup to guarantee uptime. Answer. Direct Connect as primary with a site-to-site VPN as backup. Scaled down but fully functional environment always running, recovery time minimal. Answer. Warm standby disaster recovery strategy. RTO of 5 minutes in all regions, but software install takes over 45 minutes. Answer. Build a golden AMI and copy it into every AWS region. Shared POSIX multi-availability zone file system for Fargate plus cross-region backup with RPO 8 hours. Answer. Amazon EFS with AWS backup, cross-region backup. Serve a static backup page only when the primary site is unavailable. Answer. Route 53, failover routing, active-passive, primary ALB, and secondary S3. Primary stack in us, East, 1, standby in us, West 2, failover when primary is unhealthy. Answer. Route 53, failover routing with health checks, for active-passive DNS failover. Section F3. Decoupling and scaling patterns. Sessions kept in instance memory. Users lose carts, need horizontal scaling. Answer. Externalize session state to a shared store, such as Elasticache or DynamoDB. Load follows a consistent, repeating weekly pattern. Scale ahead without manual work. Answer. Predictive scaling. It scales out in advance of the forecast pattern. Long synchronous processing causes frequent ELB timeouts. Answer. Decouple with SQS and process asynchronously in an elastic beanstalk worker tier. Make the application more resilient to periodic spikes in request rates. Answer. Aurora replicas for reads, plus CloudFront in front of the ALB. Job items durably stored, loosely coupled, stateless processors added and removed with load. Answer. SQS for durable jobs, with an auto-scaling group scaling on queue depth. 503 service unavailable errors during data volume spikes on near real-time ingestion. Answer. Kinesis data streams with Lambda to buffer the spikes and decouple ingestion for processing. Database upgrades break connections. Customer rights must not be lost. Answer. Buffer the writes in a queue and replay them into the database once the upgrade completes. Flash sales spikes cause application timeouts. No re-engineering of the database layer. Answer. SQS to decouple and buffer writes, plus RDS proxy to pool database connections. Keep the fleet near peak performance by holding CPU utilization at about 50%. Answer. Target tracking scaling policy. Known peak hour on the last day of every month needs 10 instances, 2 otherwise. Answer. Scheduled scaling action setting desired capacity to 10, leaving minimum capacity low. Traffic surge overwhelms the app and records are lost with no way to replay. Answer. Put an SQSQ in front as a buffer instead of dropping records. Minimal overhead. Surge and motion data overwhelms the application and location records are lost. Answer. Buffer the incoming data in an SQSQ so nothing is dropped and can be replayed. Scale an auto-scaling group on SQSQ depth after a sudden spike in orders. Answer. Target tracking scaling policy on the backlog per instance metric. Forecast demand from history, scale in advance, and react to unplanned surges. Answer. Combine predictive scaling with dynamic target tracking scaling. Clickstream with huge traffic spikes, analyzed in real time without data loss. Answer. Kinesis data streams plus Kinesis data analytics plus Firehose delivering to S3. Two-step job process at different speeds, jobs lost during scaling events. Answer. 2 SQSQs, 1 per stage, and scale by queue depth. Scale worker instances behind SQS during unpredictable surges. Answer. Auto-scaling group target tracking on approximate number of messages, not CPU and not scheduled scaling. Aurora behind an ALB with periodic spikes in read request rates. Answer. Add an Aurora replica for the database and put CloudFront in front of the ALB. Decouple the tiers, absorb order bursts, and never drop orders if backend fails. Answer. Amazon SQS queue as a buffer, with the consumer scaling on queue depth. Section F4. Per service high availability facts. Cross-zone load balancing enabled on an NLB with uneven instances per zone. Answer. Traffic is spread evenly across all targets, but you pay for inter-AZ data transfer. Health check a private resource, such as RDS in a private subnet. Answer. Create a CloudWatch alarm, then a Route 53 health check based on that CloudWatch alarm. CloudFront must fail over automatically to a backup origin on 5xx errors. Answer. Configure an origin group with a primary and a secondary origin. Asynchronous Lambda invoke from S3, SNS, or Event Bridge gets throttled. Answer. Lambda uses an internal queue and retries for up to 6 hours. Events are not lost. Database engine level upgrade on a multi-availability zone RDS deployment. Answer. Both instances are upgraded together, so there is downtime during the maintenance window. CloudWatch alarm automatically recovers an impaired EC2 instance. What is preserved? Answer. EC2 auto recovery keeps the same instance ID, IP addresses, and metadata on new hardware, but RAM contents are lost. Single EC2 instance, cheap recovery, no auto scaling group, 10 minutes maximum downtime. Answer. CloudWatch alarm with the recover action, which works only for EBS-backed instances. Cross-zone load balancing enabled versus disabled with one target in one availability zone and 4 in another. Answer. Enabled spreads traffic evenly across all targets. Disabled sends 50% to each availability zone, then splits inside the availability zone. Primary database instance fails in a multi-availability zone deployment. Answer. RDS performs an automatic failover by pointing the DNS endpoint at the standby transparently to the application. Elasticache Redis disaster recovery with minimal downtime and data loss. Answer. Enable multi-availability zone with automatic failover. NLB with cross-zone load balancing disabled. AZA has 4 targets and AZB has 6. Answer. Each availability zone gets an equal share, then split inside the availability zone, so 50% divided by 4 is 12.5% per target. Primary instance fails in an RDS multi-availability zone deployment. Answer. Automatic failover. The name is pointed to the standby. The endpoint stays the same. Read-heavy RDS PostgreSQL that must be resilient for disaster recovery. Answer. Cross-region read replicas plus automated backups, which are single-region with point-in-time recovery. Cross-region disaster recovery for Aurora with low RPO and RTO, least overhead. Answer: Aurora Global Database. Describe what RDS multi-availability zone actually provides for the database tier. Answer: synchronous standby with automatic failover, maintenance and backups on the standby, and no reads from the standby. Section C: numbers, limits, and ports. Uploading files that range from tens of megabytes up to 20 gigabytes. Answer: multi-part upload is required above 5 gigabytes and recommended above 100 megabytes. HTTP 503 slow down errors from heavy requests on a single prefix. Answer: spread the objects across multiple prefixes. Each prefix supports 5,500 GET requests per second. SQS FIFO queue needs more than 300 messages per second, up to 3,000. Answer: enable batching on the FIFO queue. Do not switch to standard. File larger than 4 kilobytes causes a KMS encrypt validation error. Answer: envelope encryption using the Generate Data Key API. Migrating SQS standard queues to FIFO with batching. Answer: FIFO with batching supports 3,000 messages per second. The queue must be recreated, and its name must end with the .FIFO suffix. How many availability zones for N instances in a single spread placement group? Answer: 7 instances per availability zone. So the number of availability zones is N divided by 7, rounded up. For 15 instances, that is 3 availability zones. Retain Aurora data beyond the 35-day automated backup limit. Keep audit logs for years. Answer: take manual snapshots for long retention and export audit logs to CloudWatch logs. SNS notifications handled by Lambda start failing delivery as load grows. Answer: Lambda concurrency quota is exceeded, so request a limit increase for the region. Strict ordering with a peak of about 1,000 messages per second. Answer: SQS FIFO with batching. Since 300 API calls per second times 4 messages gives 1,200 messages per second. Throttling on a single S3 bucket at more than 5,000 requests per second. Answer: spread objects across many prefixes in the same bucket, since request rate scales per prefix. Route 53 simple record updated to new load balancer. Users still hit the old one. Answer: DNS caching. Wait for the record TTL to expire. Upload object around 1 terabyte each to Amazon S3. Answer: use multi-part upload, required for any object larger than 5 gigabytes. Cut the cost of replication traffic between EC2 instances across availability zones. Answer: use private IP addresses inside the VPC instead of public IP addresses. Section D. Exam Day Heuristics. Bastion host gets connection timed out reaching the private RDS MySQL database. Answer: it is a network or security group issue. Open inbound on the database security group. Access denied would mean credentials. Section E. Rare services. Centralized security event data from many accounts and services. Least development effort. Answer: Amazon Security Lake. Migrate Apache Cassandra. Keep CQL and Cassandra drivers. Eliminate cluster management. Answer: Amazon Keyspaces, a serverless Cassandra-compatible service. Immutable, cryptographically verifiable history of all changes to financial records. Answer: Amazon QLDB, so any tampering can be proven. Millions of sensor readings per second with time-based analytical queries and tiering. Answer: Amazon TimeStream, purpose-built for high-frequency time series data. Natural language questions answered across S3, SharePoint, and databases. Answer: Amazon Kindra, a machine learning-powered enterprise search service returning precise answers. Conversational chatbot understanding voice and text intents with Lambda fulfillment. Answer: Amazon Lex. No-code scheduled data transfer between Salesforce and S3. Answer: Amazon AppFlow. Full-stack web app fast with CI or CD from Git, managed authentication, and an API. Answer: AWS Amplify, with minimal infrastructure to manage.